Hi, in this video I'm going to show you how to use the Unpivot feature in Excel. Now I'm using Excel 2013, but the Unpivot feature is also available on Excel 2010 as long as you have Power Query. Now Power Query is one of the Power BI tools that are part of Excel, and you can go download that from Microsoft.com. You can just do a Google search on Power Query, download Microsoft, and you should be able to get it. And once you get it, you have to enable it. And once you enable it, you'll have a Power Query tab here. So what the Unpivot feature does in Power Query is it gives you the ability to do a reverse pivot. So what I mean by reverse pivot, maybe for example, you have a table like this where you have items, or you have these header fields that are kind of masquerading, or they're also doing double time or double duty as a row field. But basically, in a proper table, you should have your name, your fields up at the top for each column, name, quarter, and value. And within the different rows, these are your records. In some instances, you may have something like this where you would have quarter 1, quarter 2, quarter 3, quarter 4, and you really wanted to make it into a proper table so you can do some further analysis to it. Now, this is one example where we have just one row that is doing double duty as these header fields are doing double duty as row fields. Now, another example is maybe you have nested headings. In this example, we have our first row here, which is the year, and the second row here, which gives us our quarters. And this is great if you want to display it in a PowerPoint format. But if you really want to do some further analysis, some further slicing and dicing, you really want it to have it in a table format, where you have your first row as your header fields, and then the subsequent rows as your records. So you have your name, year, quarter, and value. Now I'll show you how to perform both of these, where we convert it into something like this, where we have our first row doing kind of double duty as a data or a record field. And then in the second example, where we have two rows where they're nested headings and they're performing kind of double duty as record fields, and we want to convert it into a table format where we want to do some further analysis. Now this could be three rows or 4 rows. Basically, I'm just doing 2 rows for this simple example. So let's go and try example 1, and then I'll do example 2 later on. So as I mentioned before, you should be able to download Power Query. It's available in Excel 2013. So I believe you need to go ahead and download Power Query from the Microsoft.com site. So once you've downloaded it, you'd also have to enable it. And so to enable it, all you need to do is enable it as as an add-in. So I've already enabled it here, but if you downloaded it and you don't see it up here after you install it, what you need to do is enable it. So I can just right-click on any tab here and go under Customize Ribbon, and I want to go under the add-ins. And under the add-ins, I want to make sure that, let me go ahead, and I want to make sure that if it's the inactive add-in, I want to make it active. So you see here I have active add-ins, and one of them is Microsoft Power Query for Excel. You may have it under the inactive ones. What you need to do is just go to COM add-ins, click Go To, and it's going to say Microsoft Power Query, and you just need to check that box. And once that box is checked, it will add that tab. So go ahead and do that if you wanted to put it in there. Let me say I have some add-ins disabled. Let me go and just enable content here. And now, once we have Power Query enabled, what I need to do is go click on the Power Query, and what I want to do is I want to click on File. So basically, my previous examples here, I have example 1, which is this table here, and example 2 is that table. So I go into example 1, we have that table here. We go into example 2, we have that table. So this is in another file, and what I did is I opened up a new file in Excel. You can see that this is book 1. This is a new file in Excel. And what I want to do is I want to go to Power Query and get external data. So I'm going to do example 1. Now I go into Power Query, go into the Power Query tab, and what I want to do is I want to get the external data. So I'm going to go with example 1 first. So I'm going to go and get external data from the Excel file. So I save that file onto my local directory, and I'm going to go ahead and import data from that specific Excel file for example 1. Now go ahead and open that particular file. It's called Unpivot Nested here. This is the example file where I have example 1 and example 2 in those tabs. Go ahead and double click that. And what it's going to do is it's going to connect to that particular file, and it's going to bring up the different tabs that are there. So I'm going to do example 1 first, and so what we're going to do is select example 1 and go ahead and do some editing for that particular file or that particular tab in that file. So that it should be bringing it in. You notice that now it's giving me the navigator window, and it's going to pull up the tabs that are coming from that file. So you can see here previously I had 3 tabs: intro, example 1, example 2. So in this example I'm going to go ahead and bring in example 1. So once I click on that, it's going to give you a preview, and it's going to give me that that table where we have quarter 1, quarter 2, quarter 3, and quarter 4, and that other column where we have our items. So you can see it's here. So what we want to do is we just want to edit this. So once the preview is brought up, we're going to go ahead and click on the edit button, and it's going to bring it into the Power Query editing window. And once that's populated, we're going to do some transformation. So basically, Power Query gives you the ability, when you extract the data, you can go ahead and transform it or clean it up to the way that you want it. So in this example, what we want to do is we want to make this all one table. So first what we need to do is this first row is basically our header row. So I'm going to go ahead and bring this up to the header row. And to do that, what we need to do is under Home, we can go ahead and use the first row as headers. So once I click on that, you notice that now it's going to be Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4 in the particular headers. I'm just going to go ahead and change this to name. Go ahead and click on that, right click, and rename that. I'll just call that name. Just some cleanup here. Oops. Press enter. And right now we pretty much have it where we want it. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to select this particular column, right click, and select the header part, right click, and go under where it says Unpivot Other Columns. So basically what I want to do is I want to bring these 4 columns in part of the records. So once I click on that, right click, and go under Unpivot Other Columns, now you'll notice that it's basically transformed it. It's kind of transposed the columns. And now we have item 1, 2, and 3, and we have Q1, Q2, Q3 for each respective item. So what I can do now is I can just kind of change the headers here to give the correct or more appropriate headings. So this is going to be, I'm going to change this to period, and the value, I'm going to leave the value there. And once that's done, what I can do is I can click Close and Load, and basically it's going to create a table in my one of the worksheets here. So now you see that it's actually created the worksheet. It's created with sheet 2 here, and it's created my table. So if I go back into the previous sheet where I have my intro, you notice that now, let's take for example, we have item 1, Q3, 224, right? So we're going to go back into the sheet here. We have item 1, Q3, which is 224. So basically what we've done now is we've basically taken this format, which is harder to do any analysis, and made it into a table where we can do further analysis. Now that's the example 1 where we did an unpivot, or in a way you can think about it as a reverse pivot. Now the second example here is a little bit more complicated because we have 2 rows which should be header fields, and they're basically part of the data fields here. And so we want to convert that into a table like this. So let me go ahead and get into a new Excel file. So now we're in a new Excel file or workbook. I'm going to go into Power Query, and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to go get the external data from a file and from the Excel file, and I'm going to get the same file. And instead of choosing the tab where it says example 1, I'm going to go ahead and choose the tab where it says example 2. So once this comes up, we'll go ahead and select that particular tab. So the navigator showed up, and I'm going to go and show example 2. Click on example 2, and then it's going to show a preview. And basically what we want to do is make sure that that preview, that particular format is exactly what we're going to be pulling in. And it is, so I'm going to go ahead and go under Edit and let it bring it into the Power Query editor. So now it's in the Power Query editor, and there's a little bit more things that I need to do with it besides just go ahead and making this the header field, because basically you can't make this the header field because it's two rows that are basically the header. So what I want to do first is I want to transpose this data. And so what I'm going to do is go under transform, and under transform, under the table group, go ahead and click on transpose. And what it's going to do is it's going to bring item 1, 2, and 3 up here, and 2013 and the quarters is going to make them part of the rows here. So I have 2013 and 2014, and you see these are null values, and basically it brought in those blanks as null values. And what I want to do is I want to fill those null values with 213, because Q1, Q2, and Q3, Q4, this particular grouping is associated with year 2013. And these groupings, Q1 to Q4, is associated with 2014. So what I want to do is fill that down for 2013 and fill it down for 2014. So I'll go ahead and click the row and go under fill here, under the transform tab, go under fill and go fill down. So what it's going to do is it's going to fill everything that's above it down. So 2013, you can see that it's populated here for this particular column, and for 2014, those null values have been populated. And after that's done, I want to join these two together, column 1 and column 2. So I'm going to go ahead, and this column 1 is selected. Press the shift key and also select column 2. And what I want to do is I want to merge them. So under the transform, go under merge, and I'm going to merge them and have a separator. I'm just going to use the colon as a separator, and it's going to name it a new column. I'm not going to give it a name. I'm just going to go ahead and click OK. And now you'll notice that these two columns have been merged into one column, and they're just separated by a colon. So what I'm going to do after that is I'm going to transpose it again. So I'm going to switch this up here to the top row, and items 1, 2, and 3, they're going to go back here in this first column. So what I'm going to do is just click on the transpose command here, and it's going to switch them back. So now you notice that it switched it back, and now instead of having two rows where they're header rows, I have one row that's a header row. So I'm going to go ahead and bring this up as the header row. So I'm going to go back under the home, or I can actually do it under here. You notice that there's many ways that you can perform the same action. So under the transform tab, we also have a command here that uses the first row as headers. You can notice if we went to the home tab, we have that command here under the transform group, but under the transform tab, we also have it here under the table group. So since I was under this tab already, I'm just going to go ahead and click use the first row as header. So instead of having column 1s to column 9, we're going to have this row as the header. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that, and it's going to become the header right now. And once that's done, I'm just going to go ahead and change this header row. I'm just going to call this name like I did before. So I'll go ahead and right click, rename that, and just call it name. All right, press enter. And now what I can do now is I can do the unpivot command here. And so what I'm going to do is click on this particular column, and right click and go unpivot other columns. I did that earlier, so I'll show you something else. What you can do is you can select this particular column, press the shift key, and select that last column. It's all selected. Right click, and instead of unpivoting the other columns, we're going to unpivot these columns. So basically, it's just the reverse of what I did earlier. You can do one or the other. It doesn't matter. It just depends on which columns you select that are highlighted. So I'm going to unpivot this column, and what you'll notice is now this is moved down to a column here in addition to the name column. Now what I want to do is I want to separate that. Now I don't want to have 2013 colon Q1 in one column. I want to separate the year in one column, have the quarter in another column. So I'm going to select this, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to split the column now. Under transform tab, under the text column grouping, I'm going to split the column by delimiter. So the delimiter is our colon here. So I'm going to go ahead and select colon and click OK. And now you notice that it's split it out by year and by quarter. So I'm going to go ahead and just click on that, right click, and rename that. I'm just going to call that year. And then under the attribute tier 2 here, I'm going to right click. Whoops, let me go ahead and wait for that to select. Right click and go into rename. I'll just call that quarter. Press enter, and it's going to go ahead and rename that. And so after that, I'm going to go under home and close and load. And what it's going to do is it's going to load it under a new tab in the spreadsheet. in the workbook here, and we're going to have basically our unpivoted or our reverse pivot here. So let's say, for example, Q2, item 2, 2013, Q3, it's 204 quantity. So if I go back into my previous sheet, item 2, Q3, 2014. Let me see if that's the same data. 2013 Q3 254. So it's 2013 Q3, and you can see it's 254 here, and this basically matches the table that we created. And if we go back here, you can see that we have our values here. 277. Let me make sure this is right. 277 is the first one. 168 is the last one. So 277, 168. So basically, that's how we would do the unpivot, or kind of a reverse pivot of this particular format of data into a proper table, where we just have the first row with the field headings. In this example, name, year, quarter, value. So we can do some further analysis. So we can actually turn this into a pivot table and do some additional analysis. Instead of being stuck with something like this, where it's a little bit harder to do analysis, this is basically the final format of a file. And that's a little more complex example because this has nested headings. This is a more simple example. But there's some powerful features in Power Query where you can do an unpivot. So this shows example 1, shows example 2 here. So I hope that helps. Thanks for watching.